Please, sweetheart, Grandma really needs you right now. She's in bad shape. My mom's voice crackled through the phone, heavy with what I now recognize as faint concern. I sat in my Indianapolis apartment, surrounded by the luggage I had packed for our long-awaited family cruise. The excitement that had been building inside me for days quickly deflated, like a balloon with a slow leak. Of course, I'll stay, I replied without hesitation. The cruise didn't matter. Family always came first, didn't it? And those words, those very words, would come back to haunt me in ways I never could have imagined. My name is Emma Taylor. I'm 28 years old. For as long as I can remember, I've always been the one who held things together. The one everyone could count on when times got tough. I always thought that my dedication to my family would earn me the love and respect I deserved. But today, that loyalty would be tested in the most brutal way possible. I had been looking forward to this cruise for months. It was supposed to be the vacation of a lifetime, the first real family getaway in years. My parents, my younger sister, Sarah, a few uncles, aunts, and cousins, everyone. I had even cleared my schedule, taken time off work, and bought new summer clothes to make sure everything was perfect. But when my mom called and said Grandma was in the hospital, I didn't think twice. I canceled everything. Family came first. After all, what I didn't know was that my family had other plans. As I drove to the hospital that evening, my phone buzzed with a new notification. It was from Sarah, my sister, the one who could do no wrong in our parents' eyes. I hesitated for a moment, then opened the post. My heart stopped. There they were, the entire family, my parents, Sarah, my aunts, uncles, all of them, smiling widely on the deck of a cruise ship. Champagne glasses raised in celebration. The caption read, "Best vacation ever. So blessed to have such an amazing family. Family time, cruise life." I felt the ground beneath me shift. My family, my own flesh and blood, had lied to me. They had orchestrated this entire scheme, using Grandma's illness as an excuse to exclude me from the vacation I'd been dreaming about for months. And I, the fool, never saw it coming. I couldn't breathe. I stared at the photo, my fingers trembling on the screen. There they were, every single one of them, laughing, living their best life, while I was left in the dark, alone, betrayed. It wasn't just the photo. It was the message behind it. The message that said, "We don't need you here. You're not part of this." My mind raced as I pulled my car over to the side of the road, heart pounding in my chest. I tried to call my mom again. I needed answers. I needed to understand how they could do this. But my calls went straight to voicemail. My hands shook harder as I dialed my dad's number. But it was the same voicemail. I felt the weight of every unanswered call pressing down on me, suffocating me. My family wasn't just absent, they had purposefully left me behind. Using my love for Grandma as the perfect cover-up. They didn't just choose not to tell me about the trip, they lied. They manipulated me, and they thought I wouldn't figure it out. When I finally arrived at the hospital, I was a bundle of nerves, my mind still reeling from the photo. I rushed to the front desk and asked about my grandmother. The receptionist glanced at me with confusion before saying there was no record of anyone by that name being admitted. I felt my stomach churn. I couldn't even process it. I called my parents one last time, but my calls were still ignored. That's when it hit me. The lie wasn't just about Grandma. It was about me. It was all about excluding me from their perfect little family vacation. In a daze, I drove straight to Grandma's house. My mind kept replaying the image of my family, the carefree smiles frozen in time, while I was left alone to deal with the weight of their deceit. I could hardly hold back the tears as I knocked on Grandma's door, my heart heavy with hurt. When she opened it, I froze. There she was, standing before me, looking perfectly healthy. No hospital bed, no IV drip, just my grandmother, smiling in confusion. "Tara, what's wrong, sweetheart?" she asked, pulling me into a warm embrace. Her scent, the familiar lavender perfume, flooded my senses, and I felt a fresh wave of emotion crash over me. It wasn't just the betrayal. It was the realization that I'd been played. That they had used the one person I cared about most to deceive me. As we sat in her cozy living room, the truth finally came spilling out. I told her everything, how I had been excluded from the cruise. The photo, the silence. I didn't understand. Why would they do this to me? Why would they lie about Grandma being sick just to keep me away? Grandma listened quietly, her face hardening with disappointment as she spoke. Your parents have always favored Sarah, she said softly. You've been there for me time and time again. I've seen it, Tara. You helped me with everything, groceries, doctor's visits, even just spending time with me. And Sarah? She only comes around when she needs something. And yet, somehow, she's always the golden child. Her words struck a chord deep inside me. I hadn't wanted to believe it. But Grandma was right. The evidence was all around me. I'd worked so hard to be the dependable daughter, the one they could count on. And yet, it was always Sarah who got the better treatment. She got the dance lessons, the private school education, the college tuition paid for, while I struggled with student loans and part-time jobs just to keep my head above water. Grandma's eyes softened as she continued, her voice filled with anger now. Your mother called me last week, Tara, she said, her lips curling into a frown. She asked me to pretend I was in the hospital, to help with the lie. I refused. I never thought they would actually go through with it. I felt the tears welling up in my eyes. I had been manipulated, used, all these years. I thought I was doing the right thing. I thought I was helping my family. But in the end, all they saw in me was a tool to get what they wanted. Before I share what happened next, the moment that shattered everything I thought I knew about my family, I want to connect with you. My amazing viewers, where are you watching from? Drop your country's flag in the comments below. And if you've ever had to fight for something you believe in, hit that like button, because this story is just getting started. As I sat there in Grandma's cozy living room, the weight of her words began to sink in. The betrayal felt deeper than I could have imagined, and I couldn't help but wonder how far this deception had gone. How many more secrets were hidden beneath the surface of my family's lies? Grandma handed me a thick manila envelope, its contents heavy with years of carefully kept secrets. I've been watching, she said, her voice steady but filled with an undeniable resolve. Every time they favored Sarah, every time they took advantage of your kindness, I documented it. It's all here. I opened the envelope, my heart pounding as I looked through the documents. Bank statements, photos, emails, even handwritten notes. Everything was right there in front of me. The proof was undeniable. My stomach twisted as I pieced it together. The money meant for me, my trust fund, had been drained over the years. It was all spent on Sarah, her dance lessons, her private school tuition, her wedding, while I had been left with nothing but student loans and part-time jobs. They had used my inheritance for her every whim. I could hardly process it. How had I been so blind? The realization hit me like a punch in the gut. They hadn't just lied, they'd stolen from me. Every time I worked hard to support myself, they were siphoning off my future to fund Sarah's privileged life. Grandma's face hardened with a mix of anger and sorrow as she continued. They've been doing this for years. Tara, your mother convinced your uncle to release your portion of the trust fund early, claiming it was for your benefit. But as you can see, her voice dropped, filled with bitterness. They've spent it all on Sarah. I felt like the ground had been pulled out from under me. I had always believed in my family. I had always trusted them. But this was something entirely different. How could they do this? I whispered, barely able to voice the crushing weight of what I had just discovered. The rage and disbelief were overwhelming. Because that's what people do when they know they're wrong, Grandma said quietly, her hand resting on mine, offering a small but steady comfort. They make you doubt yourself. They make you believe you're imagining things. But you weren't. You never were. I stared at the documents in my hands. The truth now painfully clear. The entire foundation of my relationship with my family had been built on lies, manipulation, and greed. And I had been too trusting, too naive to see it. But now I had the proof. I had the truth. The silence in the room was thick with the weight of the realization. I felt my anger simmering just beneath the surface, burning hotter with every second. For the first time, I wasn't the naive daughter they had used for years. I had the power. I had the evidence. I looked up at Grandma, determination solidifying in my chest. I won't let them get away with this, I said, my voice steady and fierce. They've taken enough from me. It's time to take it all back. The next few days felt like a blur. My mind consumed with the weight of everything I had uncovered. But no matter how hard I tried to process it all, one question kept echoing in my head. Why? Why had they done this to me? Why had they used me? Lied to me? Stolen from me? As I sat in my apartment one evening, still reeling from the shocking truths Grandma had revealed, my phone buzzed with a new message. It was from my cousin Nina. She didn't know the full story. She wasn't aware of how my parents had shut me out of the cruise. She had sent a group text with vacation photos meant for the whole family. I hesitated before opening it, but when I saw the photo, my heart skipped a beat. There was Sarah, wearing the sundress I had helped pick out for the trip. My parents were lounging by the pool, cocktails in hand, clearly having the time of their lives. The whole family was gathered for a formal dinner, all dressed up, laughing, and celebrating. But it wasn't just the happiness in the photo that caught my attention. It was the one detail that sent a chill down my spine: the diamond necklace my mother was wearing. The one Grandma had given her years ago. The necklace that was meant to be passed down to both of her daughters when they turned 30. I had always assumed she'd give it to me when my time came. I showed the photo to Grandma. She gave it to Sarah already. Didn't she? I asked, my voice thick with disbelief. Grandma studied the picture for a moment before answering, her expression darkening. That necklace has been in our family for generations, she said, her voice heavy with emotion. Your great-grandmother gave it to her daughters equally. I gave it to your mother with specific instructions that it would be passed down to both of you. Not just Sarah. A cold shiver ran through me as I absorbed her words. This wasn't just about a necklace. It wasn't just about the cruise or the money they'd stolen from me. This was about something deeper. Something rooted in years of favoritism, manipulation, and control. But there was more. Grandma's voice dropped, her words sharp and cutting. The cruise wasn't paid for with your parents' money, Emma, she revealed, her eyes locked on mine. 2 months ago, I gave them $15 for the entire family to go on this trip, with the understanding that it would include you. Instead, they used your share of the money to upgrade their cabins and book extra excursions. It's all been a lie from the start. The air felt thick with the weight of her words. My heart pounded in my chest, each beat growing louder as I tried to process what she was telling me. The money I had saved for this trip, every penny I had scraped together, had been used to exclude me. My parents had planned it all along, from the moment they knew they didn't want me there. Why? I whispered, my voice barely audible. Why couldn't they just tell me the truth? Why didn't they just say they didn't want me there? Grandma reached out and squeezed my hand, her grip surprisingly strong. Because they knew you would never leave them. Emma, they used your love for them, your sense of duty to manipulate you. And when you were no longer useful, they tossed you aside. I could feel the anger rising within me, hot and relentless. The truth was out in the open now, and there was no denying it. But even as the pieces of the puzzle fell into place, something else was gnawing at me, something far more sinister. I looked up at Grandma, my mind racing. This isn't just about the cruise, is it? I asked, already knowing the answer. No, she said softly, her voice laced with bitterness. It's about the trust fund. The money they've been stealing from you since you were 3 years old. Your parents have been siphoning off your inheritance for years. And Sarah, she's been the one to benefit from it all. The anger inside me surged like a tidal wave. I had spent years thinking I wasn't enough, that I wasn't worthy of my parents' love. But now, I understood. It wasn't me. It was them. They had chosen to invest everything in Sarah, while I was left to fend for myself, drowning in debt and disappointment. Grandma leaned forward, her voice firm. Your mother convinced the trustee to give her early access to your portion of the trust, claiming it was for your benefit. But as you can see, they've used it all on Sarah. And now, they want to keep you in the dark, keep you from knowing the truth. I stared at the papers in my hands. The evidence laid bare, the years of deceit, the manipulation, the cruelty. It was all there in black and white. And I could no longer turn a blind eye. The truth had been unveiled. There was no going back. And I wasn't going to let them get away with it. The following days felt like I was walking in a fog. The anger, the disbelief, the weight of the lies, it all twisted inside me like a knot that I couldn't untangle. Every thought led me back to the same conclusion: my family had betrayed me. And now, with the truth in my hands, I had a decision to make. I knew I couldn't sit back and let them get away with this. I had to act, and I had to act fast. It all came to a head one evening when my phone buzzed again. It was a group text from my cousin Nina. She had no idea what was really going on. But she had sent over more photos of the cruise. The ones I wasn't supposed to see. I had already seen too much. But I opened it anyway. There was Sarah, grinning from ear to ear in the same sundress I had helped her pick out. The entire family was gathered at a formal dinner, toasting their best vacation ever, with smiles plastered on their faces. I couldn't stop the wave of nausea that hit me. But this time, there was something else. Something that turned my blood cold. A picture of my mother, wearing the diamond necklace that Grandma had given her years ago. The one that was supposed to be passed down equally. The one I was supposed to receive when I turned 30. But Sarah had already worn it. I felt my heart drop into my stomach. The necklace wasn't the only thing they'd stolen from me. It was my inheritance. It was my trust fund. It was everything that was rightfully mine. They had lied, manipulated, and used me for years. And now, I had proof. I showed the picture to Grandma, and her face tightened as she saw it. "They've been doing this for years," she said, her voice sharp with anger. "This wasn't just about the cruise. They've been taking from you since you were a child. Emma, your mother convinced the trustee to release your trust fund early, under the guise that it was for your benefit. But it was always for Sarah." My hands trembled as I held the photo. This was the moment when I realized how deep the lies ran. They had taken my future, used my love for them as a tool to get what they wanted. And now they thought they could just erase me. But they were wrong. I wasn't going to let them. I sat down and opened the envelope Grandma had given me, my hands shaking as I went through the records she had kept: bank statements, emails, notes, each page more damning than the last. The truth had been staring me in the face for years. But now it was clear. My parents had been using my inheritance to fund Sarah's every whim. They had been taking from me since I was too young to understand. And now they were trying to keep me in the dark. But not anymore. "This ends now," I said aloud to myself. My voice steady but filled with the kind of determination I had never known I had. I wasn't just going to expose them. I was going to make them pay. The next morning, I called my lawyer. The process was long and complicated. But with the evidence Grandma had kept over the years, it was clear that I had a case. I needed to protect what was mine, my inheritance, my future, and I wasn't going to let my parents and Sarah get away with what they'd done. The legal battle wasn't easy. My parents tried everything they could to silence me, to make me feel small, to make me question my right to what was mine. But I stood my ground. I fought back. With every legal document, every phone call, every email, I was one step closer to justice. They tried to scare me, to intimidate me, but I knew the truth. And the truth was stronger than anything they could throw at me. As the weeks passed, I watched as my parents scrambled to cover their tracks. They tried to lie, to manipulate, to make me seem like the villain in all of this. But it was too late. The evidence was undeniable. They had lied, stolen, and used me for years. And now, the world was going to know the truth. The tension grew thicker with each passing day. My heart raced every time my phone rang. Every time I received another message from my lawyer. But through it all, there was a sense of relief that I wasn't alone anymore. Grandma, Uncle Michael, and even some distant relatives who had seen the way my parents had treated me, they all rallied behind me. I was no longer the quiet, dutiful daughter who always did what was asked of her. I was the one who was going to make sure they paid for what they'd done. And I was determined to see this through, no matter what it took. The day I had been waiting for finally arrived, the day everything would come to a head. It was hard to believe that just weeks ago, I had been blind to the truth, uncertain of my place in this family. But now, I held the power. I had the truth, and I was about to take everything back. I'd spent days preparing for the confrontation, working with my lawyer to ensure everything was in order. I knew my parents would fight me every step of the way. But this time, I wasn't backing down. I had the evidence, and more importantly, I had the resolve to see this through. It was a chilly morning when I walked into the family company headquarters. My heart pounding in my chest. I could feel the weight of everything on my shoulders, years of manipulation, of lies, of being treated like I was invisible. But today, I was done being invisible. Today, they would see me. I wasn't alone. Uncle Michael had sent over the final pieces of the puzzle. Documents proving not only that my parents had been embezzling from me for years, but also that they were in the process of transferring large sums of money to offshore accounts. They were planning to leave the country with what was left of my inheritance. As I entered the lobby, I saw my parents standing at the front desk, talking in hushed tones. When they saw me, their faces froze, as if they had been caught off guard. My mother's eyes widened with disbelief. "What are you doing here?" she demanded, her voice cold. I walked toward them, my steps slow but purposeful. "Funny you should ask," I said, my voice steady. "I was about to ask you the same thing." Their faces paled as I held up the documents Grandma had sent me. The ones that made it clear I was now the rightful heir to her estate, and to the controlling shares in the family company. "You didn't think I'd find out, did you?" I continued, my voice calm but unwavering. "You thought you could get away with all of this, using me and Sarah as your pawns, stealing from me for years." My father's jaw clenched. "You don't know what you're talking about," he muttered, his voice filled with anger. But the fear in his eyes told a different story. "I know exactly what I'm talking about," I said, pulling up the documents on my phone to show them. "Here's the proof. Here's everything you've been hiding. The money you've been taking from me. The lies. The manipulation. It's all right here." My mother stepped forward, her face flushed with a mixture of anger and panic. "You don't understand, Emma," she said, her voice trembling. "We did it for you. Everything we did. We did it because we love you. You don't understand what it takes to keep this family together." I shook my head. "No, you did it for you. You didn't care about me. You cared about what I could give you, what you could use me for. You thought I would never stand up for myself. You were wrong." Behind me, I heard the sound of the elevator doors opening. I didn't need to turn around to know who it was. Uncle Michael stepped into the lobby, his face tight with tension. He wasn't alone. Behind him, a group of security guards and FBI agents entered, their presence making my parents' panic more visible. "What is this?" my father asked, his voice rising in disbelief. "They're here to make sure we get everything back," I said. "Everything you've stolen from me. It's time for you to face the consequences." My mother's face crumpled as she realized the extent of what was happening. "You can't do this to us," she whispered, her voice shaking. "After everything we've done for you, after everything we've given you. You're turning your back on us?" I met her gaze, my heart no longer full of the sorrow I had once felt. "No, Mom, I'm turning my back on your lies. You turned your back on me the moment you chose Sarah over me. The moment you chose greed over family." The FBI agents began to move forward, collecting the evidence, their eyes scanning the documents with quiet determination. My parents, standing frozen in place, had no power left to stop them. It was done. As the agents took control, I turned to face Sarah, who had been watching from the corner, her face pale and tight with anxiety. She opened her mouth to speak, but I didn't give her the chance. "You didn't get away with it either," I said. "I'm not letting you off the hook just because you're my sister. You'll face the consequences too." For a moment, there was nothing but silence. My parents were led away by the agents, their faces ashen with defeat. The company, the trust fund, everything they had stolen, it was finally returning to me. And Sarah? She was left standing there, knowing that the life she had been handed on a silver platter was crumbling before her eyes. As I watched my parents being taken away, I felt a strange sense of calm settle over me. The years of pain, the lies, the manipulation, it was over. I had won, not just the legal battle, but the battle for my dignity, my future, and my peace of mind. Later that night, I sat with Grandma in her garden. The cool breeze sweeping through the trees. We didn't need words. We had fought. And we had won. My family's betrayal had been exposed. And the truth had triumphed. Sometimes, Grandma said, her voice soft as she sipped her coffee, life's greatest blessings come disguised as its greatest challenges. You've turned their betrayal into something positive. Emma, I looked at her, a sense of strength and clarity filling me. She was right. The cruise they had stolen from me, the one that had started all of this, wasn't the vacation of a lifetime. It had been the beginning of their downfall. And the start of my new life. The weeks that followed were a whirlwind. The legal battles continued, but now, with the weight of the truth on my side, everything seemed different. The fog that had clouded my mind for so long had finally lifted. And I could see clearly. For the first time in years, I felt free, not just from the lies, but from the toxic grip my parents had held over me. As the investigation into my parents' actions continued, more details came to light. The scale of their deception was staggering. The embezzlement, the manipulation, the years of carefully constructed lies, it was all there, exposed for the world to see. But even with all of that, what struck me the most was how much I had changed. I was no longer the person I had been before. I had stood up for myself. I had fought back. I spent more time with Grandma in the following months. She was my rock, my guide through this storm. And I began to truly understand the depth of her wisdom. As we sat together in her garden one quiet afternoon, sipping our coffee, I realized how much she had always known, how much she had quietly observed, waiting for me to find the strength to see the truth. You've made it through the hardest part, Emma, Grandma said, her voice soft but firm. And now, you're building something better, something that will last. Don't ever forget how far you've come. I looked out at the garden, at the flowers swaying in the breeze, and I realized how much I had grown. The journey hadn't been easy, but every step had led me here, to this moment, to a future I could finally call my own. The company, once in my father's control, was now in my hands. The shares I inherited from Grandma gave me a voice, a power I had never known I had. I made changes, small ones at first, but they were important. I implemented new policies to ensure transparency, to make sure no one would ever have to feel like I did. I started a scholarship fund for the employees' children, hoping to give them the opportunities I never had. The business began to thrive, not because of deceit or manipulation, but because it was built on honesty, integrity, and hard work. And Sarah? After the investigation, she was forced to move out of state, far away from the life she had always known. She'd made her choices, and now she had to live with the consequences. I didn't feel anger toward her anymore, though. I had spent so much time being angry at her, at my parents, that I hadn't realized I needed to let go of that anger to truly move forward. I had my own life to live now, and I was no longer going to let them hold me back. 3 months later, I sat with Grandma in her garden once again, the air crisp with the early autumn breeze. I had made peace with what had happened. I had done what I needed to do. And now, I was ready to move forward. The business was thriving. The family's manipulation was behind me. And for the first time in my life, I felt like I was truly in control. Grandma looked at me, her eyes filled with quiet pride. You've turned their betrayal into something good. Emma, I'm proud of you. I smiled at her, the weight of the past finally lifting from my shoulders. I couldn't have done it without you. Grandma, you were the one who showed me the way. She reached over and squeezed my hand. No, Emma, you always had it in you. You just needed to believe it. And as I sat there, feeling the cool breeze on my face, I realized something profound. The greatest gift I had ever received wasn't the inheritance, the business, or the money. It was the strength to stand up for myself, to fight for what was right, and to find my own path in the world. The journey had been long, but I had found my way. I had found myself. I had found my way. I had found myself. And if this story inspired you, don't forget to hit subscribe so you won't miss any of our latest videos. Every story carries its own lesson and message, and I can't wait to share them with you. Thank you so much for watching. And be sure to share this video with anyone who might need a story about strength and new beginnings. I'll see you in the next video.